All right, so last week we talked a little bit about how to put together a power plan. And since then, we've figured out how to connect all of the individual outlets into a circuit. And then we indicated how to wire that circuit into a panel. And so we're going to be taking off from that, and we're going to be using the same project. And we're going to be adding a lighting plan, which does add just a little bit of complication because we need to figure out a way that we can display the power, excuse me, the lighting and its circuits on the same model that we're displaying the power and its other circuits. And these are separate circuits. So we're not going to be trying to tie power and lighting into the same circuit. And that's fairly common in commercial construction. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we're working in the correct discipline. And you can see that in this demo file that we're working in right now, we have all of the table of contents in the project browser are organized by discipline. You can see that it's broken down by discipline. So let's take a quick look at how we can switch back and forth between this organization by discipline and the one that we're probably more used to, which is just kind of throwing everything out there in the same category. And that is actually pretty easy to do. So all you really have to do, you can see that it's organized by discipline here. If you right click on that top level heading, views, you can just click on browser organization and just click a checkbox, right? So if we just do all, that's the one we're probably most used to seeing. And that puts all of the floor plans together, puts all of the ceiling plans together. And some people kind of prefer to look at it that way. It doesn't really change how things work. It just changes how it's organized. So let's go ahead and just switch that back to discipline. Okay, so we're working under the electrical heading, and those are separated out into lighting and power, which gives us a clue that both of those things are separate types of objects, which also gives us a clue that it's going to be pretty easy to display one but not the other one. So this power plan is a floor plan, and you can see that it's just this one right here. The structure of the project browser for the project that we're working on this week is going to be slightly different, but you'll be able to sort out exactly how it's all arranged. We're going to be working on a lighting plan, so we need to make sure that we have everything expanded open that we might need. And you can see that in this example drawing that I'm working on this project, we have first and second floor lighting, and then we also have first and second floor ceiling lighting. So it is possible to see the lights in the ceiling in a floor plan, but it's difficult to see the ceiling grid in the floor plan. And oftentimes when we have troffer lights, we want to be able to see that grid also. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first floor lighting plan. This is looking down, and you can see the speckles. That means that we're staring down at a concrete floor. We're also seeing all of the power, the outlets, right, on this plan. And so there's been nothing done to the view settings of this plan to change that, to adjust what we can and can't see. And if we go to the second floor, we're going to see something kind of similar, except there's no electrical up there. Going to the ceiling plan, that's going to show us the ceiling grid. And assuming we have a ceiling grid in there, and it's looking up rather than down, right? Actually, we're looking at a reflected ceiling plan, so we're sort of seeing what that ceiling would look like had we had mirrors on the floor, and we're just sort of bouncing that image above down off of the floor. So the first step is usually to lay out the lighting. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the first couple of those just to kind of remind everybody. It's been a little while since we've probably done that, but it's not difficult. What we need to do is go to the Systems tab. And on the Systems tab, you can see it's arranged by panels. And all the way over here under Electrical, you can see that there is a lighting fixture tool that we're going to use. So let's go ahead and click on that. And I'm going to give this a try. I haven't tried this yet, but rather than pick a plane, I'm going to pick a line and use the work plane it was sketched in and hope that my ceiling grid qualifies as a line that works for that. So I'm going to say OK. And then, oh, nope, it doesn't look like it's highlighting. I'm just going to try to click and nothing's happening. Okay, so I have to back out of that. I need to go back and try this again. So the lighting fixture doesn't know the plane. So I'm going to try pick a plane. I'm going to try the same thing. I'm going to say okay. And it looks like I'm able to select the ceiling. If you see, when I hover over the ceiling grid, the whole ceiling boundary is highlighting. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And now I can place that lighting fixture. So we need to make sure that we're placing it on a face, not on a work plane. And maybe that's why I ran into that problem. I might have been able to skip that step. We need to also pick a light type that is appropriate. And you can see that in my project, I don't have one loaded currently that's going to fit in a 2x4 ceiling grid. So I'm going to have to go ahead and load the family. There is a separate category for lighting. You won't find it under electrical. So go to the lighting panel or folder. We are going to be loading the MEP lights. That's important because those are the ones that have the actual electrical information in them. And they're also the ones, as you probably figured out on your final project, that actually emit light. At least some of them do. These are internal lights, and we're looking for a troffer type light. So we're going to scroll down until we find those. And there is both a 2x2 and a 2x4. As you can see, my ceiling grid is 2x4. So I'm going to pick that one and click open. So now that I have that and it matches my grid size, usually the best thing here is to place it off of the grid, because although it will snap to one grid, it won't snap to two. And I don't know why that is. Seems like an oversight on the programmer's part, but you can go ahead and snap it to one of the grids if you want. I am going to change it to thin lines so that I can see this thing a little bit better. And my first one, I'm going to go ahead and use the align tool to bring that into alignment with this grid. And I'm not going to bother locking it. You certainly can if you want to. Now these offices that I'm working in right now are a little bit awkward in terms of there's not really a great way to lay out these lights. I am going to move this one up though. I'm going to align it with this grid instead. And then I'm going to just use the copy tool to copy this thing around. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and copy these lights around to random locations. And you can kind of figure out how to do that from there. Just remember, when you do that, use a base point and an end point that coincide. So in other words, we'll start there for our base point, and then we'll just kind of use that same point subsequently other places. Okay, so I have a number of those troffer lights placed. You're going to find on your project you'll probably have to load more than one light type. I'm going to go ahead and load another light type that would be sort of based on something you would put into a gypsum board ceiling, not a grid type ceiling. So I'm going to go ahead and load a couple different types. I'm going to use this recessed parabolic and maybe this sconce light right here. Remember, you can load more than one thing at a time. Pick the one that you want before you place it. This actually is not what I was trying to load. I'm going to go ahead and load a different one. A down light, just something recessed and round. Maybe we'll go with this down light recessed can. That'd probably work better. I'm just going to put those in the bathroom here. I'm going to place one there and one right there. And maybe I'll put a couple in here as well. All right, just remember, you got to have a gypsum board ceiling in there to be able to do that. By the way, this model is linked, which is why it's gray in color, right? And that's exactly what we want for this. So the next step is to place the switches. And the switches are actually under device, under the device drop down. And you actually have to scroll down and actually pick a, am I in the right place? No, I am not. Yes, I am. Right here. Lighting. Okay. I see it now. And then make sure that you pick the correct switch before you start placing it. So if it's a circuit that's going to be controlled by two switches, remember you're going to use a three-way for that. If you're just going to control it by one switch, you're going to use a single pole. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a single pole, and I'll put these things against the wall. Now you'll notice I'm having trouble placing this against the wall. It's not really selecting the wall for me. Make sure that you look up here in your options and in your ribbon. We need to make sure that we're placing the switches on a vertical face. And I don't know why that's not the default, but it's not. So the other thing that you'll find is sometimes the switch doesn't align perpendicular to the wall, and in those cases you can just tap the space bar if you run into that. But I'm going to place one switch right there. Don't worry about the question mark. We'll place the other switch right there, and we're good in there. We'll do the same thing in these two offices, so we'll go ahead and just place another device. Make sure you put it on the correct side of the door, right? You don't want to put it behind the door like this. That makes it really hard to turn the light on. And then we'll come over here and we'll do another one right here. And then we got to put a couple of three-ways on this thing as well. And we'll do one to control this main room out here. And maybe we'll just kind of put that right here on the wall. And then we'll put another one right by the entry door. Kind of got to think through where you are going to use the switches and how many you need for each circuit. We'll do one more single pole inside this utility room right here. And I think that's going to wrap up all of the switches and the lights that we need for this level. We'll go ahead and move on to the next thing. So the next thing is thinking about how we want to break down all of these lights into individual circuits. And that is pretty well defined for that Module 3B assignment already. You can look at the schedules and the existing floor plan and kind of break that out. And notice on the instructions that it does say it doesn't have to match exactly. So I'm not really looking for you to do an absolutely meticulous job of replicating what the floor plan or the project that we're kind of using as our model. I'm more interested in you just understanding and learning the processes that we're going to use to get this done. So with that in mind, I'm going to kind of think about how I want to break these down. If this was a real project, and I am not asking you to do this, but what we would do is we would work up the wattage requirements for every one of these lights, and we would compare that to the circuits that we're putting them on, and we would run it up to about, I think it's around 80% of the circuit's capacity for those lights. We're not going to go through all of that because the circuits are already sort of defined for you already, and I am going to guess on this one as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these two lights, these 6 lights, and these 2 lights on one circuit, and then I'll do this whole north half. So I'm basically going to divide it in half by grid line number 2. Okay, so I did actually kind of rethink that. These 2 lights have to go on these circuits. So it's not a clean division on grid line 2, but you get the point. We're going to do these 2 offices in this back room here on one circuit, and then everything sort of in this open space on a separate circuit. So the first step, of course, is to get all of your lights and your switches in, and then we're going to group those into a circuit. So we're going to go ahead and select everything that's going to belong on that first circuit. That's going to be the switches and the lights. And so we're just going to hold down the control key and select everything. These 2 lights, this switch, these 2 lights, or 4 lights, and this switch. So that's the whole circuit right there. 3 switches and however many lights that is. And the next thing we're going to do is going to join those together into a circuit by clicking on the power button. It has already identified the panel that we're going to connect this to. If for whatever reason this is set to none on yours, just go ahead and just select the panel that's in there already. It will assign it a breaker, an open breaker. And then at this point you can add the wiring, the connection wiring as well. So you just click on the arc wire. You can also use a chamfer wire if you prefer that. I kind of like the arc wire look. And it'll add those wires in there. One thing you will have to do with these is the home run is kind of, they put these really long arrows on there. Usually the home run is going to be a much shorter sort of arced arrow, something like that. And then of course we're going to label those home runs by tagging them when we're done. Let's go ahead and do the other circuit. We're going to pick all of the lights again. And all of the switches. We have one right here and one right here. And I did not think about these 2 here. Yeah, let's go ahead and include all of that in this circuit. Circuit's a little overloaded maybe, but we're going to go ahead and just go with that for this example. Click on power and then arc wire. And then when we're all done, we go to the annotate tab. We're going to tag by category, And of course, we typically are not going to want to have a leader on that tag. So let's just go ahead and, I'm not sure why it keeps switching back and forth. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Uncheck the leader line, and then we can just go to the arrow and we'll put the tag on there. We will have to move it out of the way a little bit. There's one there, and then there's going to, where's the other home run at? Oh, I see it. They snuck it in right here. So we're going to go ahead and shorten that guy up a little bit. We don't want that touching the panel necessarily. Just got to pull the grips around, kind of make it look a little bit normal. And then we'll go ahead and label that one as well. So we will want to move the labels off of the wire so it's readable. But other than that, you know, we're pretty much done. If it turns out that you need to edit one of the circuits, remember that selecting a circuit is a little bit complicated. You just got to kind of remember the tab key. So if you hover over one device on the circuit, doesn't matter what it is, if it's a wire or a switch or a light, and then you just tap the tab key once, twice, and then you can see the whole circuit with that dotted line around it. Select, and then it does include the panel that's associated with that circuit. Then you pick the object. Now you've got the circuit selected. You can see that it's called out electrical circuit. You will also get the edit circuit button show up in the ribbon. And when you do that, you can add more things to the circuit if you need to by just selecting this add to circuit and then picking the additional things that you need to add. It also grays out the things that are not part of this circuit that are part of another circuit. And then you can also remove things from the circuit this way. And when you're done, you just click finish. If you had more than one panel and you accidentally assigned it to the wrong panel, this would also be a way that you could assign a different panel to that circuit. But we're happy with the circuit that we've selected here, so we're not going to change anything. Let's go ahead and go back to our floor plan on the electrical, the power plan. We're going to go to level 1 power plan. And on this one, you can see that now we've got some switches in here. We wouldn't want to see those switches because those are part of the lighting plan. Interestingly, if you go to the ceiling plan, you'll notice that you don't see any of the electrical outlets. And that's just because the view range doesn't allow it, right? Our view range, our cut plane is at 4 feet, and the top allows us to see the ceiling, but the bottom does not allow us to see the electrical outlets, which are about 1.5 feet off the floor. So we don't have an issue there, but if we did see something electrical, if for example we had a high electrical outlet on the wall, we would see it in this view and we wouldn't want to. So that's where we have to adjust the visibility settings. We can do that 2 ways, and I'm going to show you both ways. Number 1, and the easiest way, is to just simply go into Visibility Graphic Overrides and turn off, uncheck the thing that you don't want to see. So right now we are in the lighting plan. So we want to uncheck electrical systems, right? So let's go into Visibility Graphics. We'll scroll down to Electrical Equipment and Fixtures, right? So we're going to go ahead and just uncheck both of those things just to make sure that if something did kind of rise up on the wall, we would see it. Now actually electrical equipment, I think we want to leave on because we want to be able to see that panel. So we'll go ahead and leave that one on, but the fixtures we're going to leave off. So that brings the panel back. And now let's go to the power plan. We're going to go to the first level power plan, and these switches are going to go away when we go into Visibility Graphics and we uncheck lighting. So lighting fixtures and lighting devices, I believe we have to do both because the switch is a device. So we wouldn't want to be able to see a light. If there was a sconce light on the wall, for example, we wouldn't want to be able to see that on the power plan. If we click OK, those switches go away, and anything else lighting related would also go away. The other way to accomplish that, and there are certain cases where it makes more sense to do it this way, would be to use a filter. And so that also is in Visibility Graphics, but we're over here in the Filters tab on Visibility Graphics, and we haven't used this much before. I'm going to go ahead and remove these existing ones. What we would do in here is we would add a new filter, and this filter doesn't exist. There's nothing in here about electrical or lighting. So we need to click Edit, New. And we need to add both of those things. So we scroll down to Electrical, Equipment, cancel, no. First thing we need to do is create a new rule-based filter. So we're going to call this one Electrical. And we're going to create another one called Lighting. Whoops, click on this first. Something happened. I don't know what just happened. Let's try this again. Okay, did electrical stick? No, we'll have to do that again. All right, so we're going to scroll down to Electrical, Equipment. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to go too fast. I'm going to slow it down. Let's click on Rule-Based Filters, then click New, and now we're going to call it Electrical. Okay, now we got to pick the things that are part of electrical, fixtures, and equipment. Say OK. Say OK again. Didn't actually take, so we'll select that again. We'll click Electrical, say OK. Now it added that filter in there. Now let's add one more. This one is going to be for lighting, so we have to again click Edit, New. We're going to go select on Rule-Based Filters, New, Lighting. So we're creating the filters and we're creating the categories that the objects belong to within those filters. Okay, so with lighting selected, now we go down and we check the lighting devices and fixtures, say OK. And we have to pick lighting, say OK. Now it created both of those things. Once those filters are created, it's very easy to turn them on and off because you can see the visibility here is either checked or unchecked. So those filters, I don't have to create those for every view. Those are going to be in there already now. So I'm going to go ahead and, because we are looking at the power plan, we're going to uncheck lighting for this one. Say OK. And then we could go to the ceiling lighting plan and we could go to the visibility graphic and you'll find those the filters. Oh, actually it is not listed in there. It will be already in here now that we've created it. So we say OK, we add electrical, we add lighting, and then we can check or uncheck those in here as well. So in this case, we're going to uncheck electrical because we're in the lighting plan. And now we'll say OK. So we've kind of doubled up on the visibility graphics for those categories. And just to be clear, in case it wasn't obvious before, you don't have to do both of those things. You can do one or the other. Certainly the easiest way to do that, and for a simple project like this, it's probably the best way, would just be to use the basic categories, the model categories, to turn those things on and off in each view. Okay, so that should get you through everything. Everybody has created schedules already up to this point, so you should have no trouble with that, I hope. Again, you don't have to duplicate the plan or the tables exactly. Just kind of, as long as you get the gist of what you're doing and you take care of the main categories that we need for that, it's going to be fine. So reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you all in class.